Hello, welcome to Investing in Cannabis. I'm your host, Brandon David. We talk about cannabis on the show. We talk to early stage founders, we talk to investors, we talk to experts, people that help mold this industry, people that have helped mold it in the past. When I first started talking about doing the show, when I really got interested in the industry, which is only maybe like 6 months ago, to be honest. I was a smoker for a long time, but only like in the industry for 6 months or so, right? I went and had the fortunate conversation of having a talk with David Hua of Meadow. And our guest today was one of the very first people that he said you must go talk to. She's a legend in this industry, founder of BPG, and has such an activist background well before that. Debby Goldsberry, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
It's really a pleasure to sit down with a legend.
Well, that's very nice.
I'll try not to embarrass you.
Okay, don't make me too nervous right out the gate.
I have a tendency of talking people up. My director actually hates it because I tell him he's like the best ever, you know. But
I accept.
Anyway, so you have such a history. Take me back a little bit to like before delivery and edibles and all of those things.
Right.
80s, mid-80s?
Oh, well, in the 80s, yeah, I got involved. The very first time I smoked marijuana, well, I didn't feel it the first time. A lot of people have that experience. I didn't know how to inhale, you know what I mean? But the second time, I was determined. And and it changed my life forever. I literally felt one way the day before, one way the day after. Like there was something in my mind that clicked, and suddenly everything was right.
How old were you, you said?
I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, and then for me, it was just amazing. So having found cannabis and found so much satisfaction, even a life-changing experience with cannabis for the better, I couldn't understand prohibition. Like, are you kidding me? This is what they're sending people to jail for? Something that actually is like this helpful for people?
Yeah.
Made no sense.
And people were going to jail for far less than they do today. I mean, how have those things kind of changed, you know, being prosecuted?
Well, sadly, people still go to jail just for like tiny little bits of cannabis, but now we have pockets of legalization, I guess. But, well, when I got involved back in, I first smoked pot back in 1986, and there was a kind of a historic marijuana movement going on in the college campuses around the Midwest then. I'm from Illinois. So at U of I, there was this big pot rally, a smoke-in. That's what it was. It wasn't a rally. All around the Midwest, there were these little smoke-ins. The Hash Bash in Ann Arbor, the great marijuana harvest, Midwest Harvest Fest in Wisconsin. And we had Hash Bash we had Hash Wednesday at University of Illinois.
And any relation to 420 here, or how would?
No, because 420 came later. But Hash Bash was annual, third Wednesday of every April, right?
That sounds amazing.
So I become a cannabis user. I attend Hash Wednesday. 87, somebody put up a lifeguard chair and a 30-foot bong on campus. So 30-foot bong, you had to sit in the lifeguard chair to take a hit off of it. This is like how free cannabis was in the campus. But then Reagan came in, so 88, so it's time for the annual thing again. Yeah. And Reagan had put out somehow to the college campuses, squish out those smoke-ins.
Wow.
That will not go on again. So when we came, we're like quite innocent kids in the Midwest. We come to show up to smoke our pot on campus and get beat up by the cops, literally bloodied. My friend Rex even, there's a historic newspaper article, he made the front page of the newspaper because they beat him with billy clubs till he was bleeding and then drug him away. It was too startling for us. First of all, we're college kids in a liberal arts environment where we're learning about politics and freedom.
Right.
We like cannabis. Now we're being beaten bloody just because this guy Reagan becomes president and decides it's okay to...
And this were local police or campus police?
It was the I don't know.
You don't know.
It was police. Yeah. It was those police. It was probably both.
And so after you have this experience, you're just fired up,
This
right?
is what happened. Yeah. They said, you're never going to be able to do this again. And then we were like, let us tell you how wrong you are, because not only are we coming back next year to our campus, we're going to be on every campus in Illinois next year. So you think you're going to squash us here. In fact, you're creating an epidemic of activism. So we got organized. We are in Illinois. It's kind of in a cornfield, middle of nowhere. But we pick up a High Times. We just start calling everyone Normal. So we call up Normal. We find out that the director of Normal, who founded it, had been a college student at U of I.
Okay.
So Normal's involved.
Yeah.
Then we get in touch with High Times. We find out that the executive editor of High Times at the time, he was born and raised in Champaign-Urbana.
Wow.
High Times is involved.
Yeah.
Then we get in touch with the Yippies and Steve D'Angelo, founder of Harborside, of course. his girlfriend at the time, this woman, Ruby Pearl, grew up in Champaign-Urbana. Steve D'Angelo hears about they're beating the kids bloody in Champaign-Urbana. Are you kidding? So next year they all converged. So here we thought we were all in a little pocket alone, but we happened to be at a center of cannabis advocacy because of the historic nature of the movement in Illinois.
So the '89 event was just massive?
So in '89 we had a political, we didn't want to get beat up, so we didn't encourage people to have a smoke in. We had an intelligent, that's when it sort of became, we went from smoke-ins to rallies to educational events.
Open the discourse.
That's right. Right. And so we did these rallies in all the college campuses, which were so successful that by the next season, which was fall, we did 5 states. And then by the next season, which was spring, we did 17 states. And it just spread and spread and spread until we were doing hundreds and hundreds of events every year. And this is when, the laws...
And is this like one organization? Did you have a name, or it's kind of
right? We eventually gave ourselves the name Cannabis Action Network, but it was an affiliation of a whole bunch of different people. High Times was very involved. Jack Herrera came on tour with us. LV Musica, who was getting 300 joints from the federal government every month for her glaucoma, would come with us on the road. Wow. She's a blind senior citizen, and we'd load her up with the hippies and the school bus, and we'd take her around.
She loved it.
She loved it.
Yeah.
You know why? Because we knew we had a limited audience. We needed to talk to the cannabis users and the college students. We needed to take LV to the newspaper editors and to the radio stations and to the TV. So every town that we went in, we go with a multiple purpose. We're going to talk to our own people who use cannabis, get them organized. And then let's go mass media. We're going to take LV and tell people, even though we're in the height of prohibition, guess what? The government's supplying this lady 300 joints a month.
Yeah.
And because of it at that time,
300.
right? It's a lot of joints, the whole tin.
I mean, I know the weed wasn't as good back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Plenty, But basically, like, the laws were so bad. The law actually said if you looked like you consumed cannabis, or if you had a sticker on your car that was a pot leaf or a Grateful Dead, you could be stopped and searched, because the law actually said if you looked like you consumed cannabis, that was enough standard to stop you and search you for cannabis.
That's
Can you imagine?
Cause,
that's probable cause. That was the law. That was the law of the land. So we had to, just like at U of I when they came and bloodied us, we had to go full force frontal against that. Like, are you kidding me? You think that in America, constitutional democracy, this is what's going to happen to the citizens on the roads, and we really fought back. It was fun, and it was kind of a grassroots effort, but it was a sophisticated political grassroots campaign also.
And what was the impact of that? I mean, did anything change? Did it get better?
Yes, because instead of being all in the closet and no advocacy and everybody scared and kind of like on the own, like little sheep, the lost sheep out, all of it, there was no community. There was no, we weren't gathered together with
People
safety.
Felt alienated.
That's right. So we're getting picked off all the time out of our closets, busted on the edges, So when we became a community, and suddenly instead of having almost no advocacy, except maybe in some big cities and these little liberal campuses, we had advocacy groups in every state and all the major campuses and all the major cities. Our plan was never like, hey, we're going to be your bosses and control you and tell you what to do. We're going to come here and empower you so you can do something yourself. We might never be back. Who knows if we're going to come back? It's hard to be on the road. You got to do it yourself. So we really empowered organizations all across the U.S. And you'll see if you look in that sort of the note who the people were who got inspired at Hemp Tour. You'll be surprised. People like the guy who founded the Marijuana Policy Project, he got inspired at Hemp Tour. And all through the movement, you'll find the Hemp Tour people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fun.
So
fun
cool.
times. And it was fun, too, make no mistake, because it was a time of Dead Tour. And, so we'd go on Dead Tour for a while. We'd do the Hemp Tours all over the U.S. We'd go to a rainbow gathering. We'd have a good time.
I just have to say, I'm so impressed. I talk to people that, made an app all day, right? And it's like,
I want to make an app. That sounds fun, too.
Of their dog's food or something, and, you did something with your life. That's pretty cool.
You know what? I remember back then, can you imagine? There was no cell phones. There were no computers. We had to do all that organizing using pay phones.
Yeah, how was that?
I remember even turning on a computer for the first time. You know what I mean? We had to write out our flyers. Ridiculous. So
Wow.
At Steve D'Angelo's house is actually the first place I ever saw a computer, and I turned on the button. I turned on a button on a computer. Yes.
So. Flash forward a little. When do you come to California? When do you come to the Bay Area?
Well, when we were doing Cannabis Action Network, because we were traveling all the time to different places, we centered in Kentucky on an old hemp farm, so which was really cool, but only because it was central to 10 hours from Chicago, New Orleans, D.C., you name it. We could get places, but we lived in the woods, and then we just craved the city, So we had to leave. We fled the woods and we came to Berkeley. So we need to be closer to a fax machine.
What year was that?
92.
92.
Yeah.
And what is the cannabis scene like in the Bay Area in 92?
All of the greats were active.
Yeah.
Dennis Perrone was doing his work on medical marijuana. Dr. Todd Micaria had his book, this big book called Marijuana Medical Papers, where he had collected historic proof that cannabis was medicine and had been used for 100 years. Yeah. Chris Conrad and Mickey Norris, who were co-authors of The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which is the book that blew the lid off the history of hemp, they were here. So if any place was going to be a place to come and find the best, most talented, hardworking advocates, it was here.
This was the Mecca.
This was the Mecca. Yeah,
movement.
Exactly.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn cool.
It was fun.
And as a young person, you just come there and just blown away, just super fired up.
Wow. Well, we got here with $10 in our pocket.
Yeah.
This is like pioneering, right? We literally arrived with $10. Me and one other person. $10 to split between two people and two dogs. So the very first thing we did is got a permission to put up an educational booth on Telegraph Avenue, which has all these street vendors, and at the time it had a lot more. And our buddy Ed Rosenthal, who writes all these cannabis grow books, like marijuana, what's his books called? He writes the Bible. Anyway, he's got all these books, Ed Rosenthal. And he fronted us a box of books, and we just took the books down to Telegraph Avenue. We had a table and a tablecloth and some literature and put it out, and that's how we kind of started. It's literally with $10 and a box of books fronted from Ed Rosenthal.
And people would come ask questions?
They would come by, we'd give them literature, get involved with the cause. We started having meetings, we eventually afforded them.
That were smoking, but just were alienated and kind of wanted to be a part of this movement.
There was still no, it was still hard to find a community because just still in 92 we were coming out of that drug war. Everyone was still afraid and people were still in the closet, but we were getting stronger. And, we had to learn not to just get busted all the times on the highway, because if you don't know how to interact with police, they'll just beat you up and take you to jail.
Yeah.
So one of the skills we had to teach cannabis users is how to interact with police officers in a way that you don't get beaten up and taken to jail.
Yeah.
So the more that we could get the word out.
Which was how then?
Well, one of the very first things is to know that you have a right, that you have a constitutional right to say these words. I do not consent to this search.
Yeah.
That police have to have a reason to search you.
Yeah.
And that the standard saying that you look like you consume cannabis is not enough to stand up in a court of law. And in fact, they were trained to trick you, to give up your constitutional right to not be searched. And so if you knew how to state the words, I do not consent to this search, verbally, you have to say them, and empower your constitutional right, then often the police would stop in their tracks because they realize maybe you're going to fight. They want easy busts,
Right.
Or you would have a leg to stand on when you got a lawyer and fought. So teaching people little keys about constitutional democracy, verbal empowerment of constitutional rights. I choose to remain silent and I want to see my lawyer. Yeah. That's so important because this is what happens. You get around a cop, oh man, they go to school and they go to school and they learn how to trick and confuse you to get you to give up your constitutional rights, to give them enough info to arrest you and send you to jail.
And you're most likely a college kid.
Right, and you don't know any better.
And you might be a little stoned and paranoid, right?
And there's the cops, and they're not your friend, and you think what should I do, officer? Okay, well, tell me everything. That's what they do. So the more people that we could tell to know the magic words, I choose to remain silent and I want to see my lawyer, and to do it in a way actually that doesn't get the next thing is the cop pulls out the billy club and hits him upside the head, because you kind of have to be
tone is important.
Like, look, I'm just participating in democracy. It's so fun, I read about it in high school or something. You have to kind of say something like this. You stop talking, you know what I mean? You don't give the cops everything you need. You actually empower.
Yeah. Don't say anything.
Except you have to say the magic words. I choose to remain silent and I want to see a lawyer. If you just remain silent, you actually haven't invoked your constitutional protections. Yeah, so you say it.
Well, I feel lucky to live in these days because it has changed so dramatically, right?
Totally.
Now, obviously, I'm a white male, so maybe I don't get picked on by the police than maybe some other groups do. But I do feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we've come so far in that way, right? With the police versus cannabis sort of debate.
I think so. And a lot of it is through the hard work, again, like of changing the laws, making laws, and the police are supposed to follow the laws. And I don't know if you were here when we passed Proposition 215, but the police couldn't believe it. They were like, we are cops and we don't have to follow this law.
Right.
And
they were relieved.
Well, no, at first they wanted just to bust as many people as possible. It was a nightmare. Right after we passed Prop 215, the cops were like sharks on a feeding frenzy because they couldn't believe that they lost the right to bust us all. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And the highways were a mess because especially California Highway Patrol, they were not following the law. They were still pulling people over. They were still arresting people for cannabis. You could show them their medical card and you'd go to jail. We had to actually sue the California Highway Patrol to get them to enforce the state law. So it was actually through direct action and numerous lawsuits against police departments that got these laws enforced. They couldn't believe it. You know why? Because police have this like... they have like I don't know, a guide back at the police department, right? A schedule of crimes. And so each police department makes a schedule of the crimes and they prioritize the crimes. And it's like a list, right? Yeah. So you got to go in, once we legalize in California, we got to go into all the police departments, you know, for adult use. And we have to get them to reprioritize the list of crimes. Wow. They've got to take cannabis off there. Because the lower level cops are like, we just read the list and cannabis was still on there. Right. You know what I mean? So we had to go around to police departments and have them change their training processes because they do cop trainings, right? So now they need a medical marijuana is legal training, not bust stoners every chance you get. Reprioritize the lists and then you're kind of golden. And then you still got the idiots who, I mean, the officers who still are upset and still bust cannabis users. That's why you see we're still having people get arrested for cannabis all the time, just all the time.
That's fascinating, though.
Yeah.
I had no idea about sort of changing the schedules within. I would assume a law changes, right, and then the government acts appropriately.
One would think, but actually citizens run the government, so we have to get into every layer of government and make sure the cogs turn. So
that's a clip right there. We got to clip that out. You should
there you go.
Write that down or something. That was amazing. So when does it kind of turn from activism into more of a business? You know, when do you decide, okay, there's an actual market here too?
When does it turn from activism to business? Never.
Never.
At least not yet, because we're still in the midst of a massive drug war, and there are people in prison for life for cannabis. And in other states not so lucky as California, people are going to prison for life. People are losing their jobs, they can't get student loans, they're being kicked out of their housing, their kids are being taken away. And so I think the people in legal states that have an advantage, people like me and you, we know more about business. Well, we need to use this platform as a platform to help America and to help other people and to actually use cannabis to implement the democracy that America is supposed to be, to end this war on drugs and to help other people. Yep. So when does it stop? Not yet. Not until people are out of jail, not until every last person is out of jail for life for cannabis, not until, African American and Latino men aren't being sent to jail always for cannabis. 800,000 people continue to be arrested every year for cannabis. It's obscene. So in my opinion, we can't stop. And part of what I do with my time is train entrepreneurs that are entering about the fact that we have to continue social responsibility and that we actually still are fighting a drug war. And guess what? People are real surprised when they come in from the outside and then they find out the DEA is actually quite mad at them. I had an outside company I work with who just came into the industry. They're nice people, really good people, and they even use cannabis. They thought, let's do it. We're business people. We can do it. All the way up to the FBI visited their door and say, hey, we saw your name on the list of people trying to do this. And they were just like, holy jeez, FBI's at the door now. They really weren't prepared, because they thought we're in California. It's a new paradigm. We can do this thing. No. Last time I was harassed by the DEA, July, they stopped us at the airport because my traveling companion had mentioned that she worked for a medical cannabis dispensary. Next thing you know, they send the DEA to the gate, Like, are you kidding me? The war on drugs is far from over.
Yeah. Even in California.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's right. It's a mess.
Yeah. So you were talking about new founders coming in the space, and we talked to a lot of them here on this program. And there is sort of this lack of knowledge surrounding activism and how it's affecting not just entrepreneurs in San Francisco, right? And I think people only are focused on the states and the cities or states where it's medically legal or recreational, and they're not thinking about some of the southern states or some of the other states that, there are a lot of cannabis smokers that are suffering. I mean,
right.
Pretty much the way it is, right?
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of my thoughts. Let's get those cannabis entrepreneurs good and stoned. Like, let's make sure they smoke a lot of weed. Yeah. Because I think repeated use of cannabis changes the way you view things. I don't think this is a bad thing. This is what happens. It happens like this. You smoke cannabis, you're thinking differently. It's not an absurd thought, you're just looking at things differently. You're relating topics together, facts come together.
It helps things connect in your brain.
Right. Things connect in your brain in a different way, differently than normal.
Yeah.
When you disrupt your normal way of thinking and you look at the same things differently, that's actually creativity. That's the scientific basis of creativity, is looking at things differently in these ways. So what happens when people consume cannabis and they start to look at these things differently? I think they become more creative and open-minded. So anybody that I see coming into the industry who doesn't have real life experience with cannabis, I just think, wow, am I going to get worried? No. Hopefully they'll use some cannabis, they'll change who they are as people, and they'll become a little bit more open-minded about the fact that we're trying to make a better America. Yeah. We're trying to make people that are nicer and kinder and have a community. We share the joint, we share our meals, we go out for coffee. This is a sharing community. Yeah. So And actually, I found the entrepreneurs only come to this industry because that's their basis anyway. So we're
most of them.
Many of them. Yeah. You're right. Most of them.
Well, I very much agree with you. Cannabis has made me a better person.
It really works like that. It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of research into the scientific basis of this creativity and cannabis issue and the effect it actually has and how it does change the way you're relating facts and topics. And I think that's very important. And I think that's part of why, I just wrote an essay, for example, it's called Saving America with Cannabis. And I think it's really true. I think, for example, I do this conference called the International Cannabis Business Conference. We do it every year in San Francisco. It's coming up February.
Where in San Francisco?
Down at the Hyatt in Embarcadero.
Oh, cool.
So it's February, it's usually Valentine's Day, so February 14th, 15th, or 13th,
That's
14th,
an amazing
I forget.
date to choose, right?
We love cannabis.
Right? I also just hate Valentine's Day. Like classic
solidarity. Totally. Yeah. Are you kidding? And then for the people that like it, then they're like, honey, let's go to San Francisco for Valentine's Day. So it's totally fine too. But at that conference, we try and teach this nexus. We all need each other. Yeah. We need the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs need the creative cannabis people. And we are going to make a better society together. So I think it's great. Everything is taken off like wildfire now that we have entrepreneurs. People that know business, people who know more about, making money, productivity, putting people to work in good ways, bringing values to business. Yeah. So these are important things.
Well, that's what we're all about here, right? I mean, that's definitely one of the intentions of this show is to kind of begin to legitimize the industry as a whole, right? That consumers of cannabis are also hardworking people that do real shit with their life. Right? I mean, that's the way I am. That's the way the whole team is. That's the way you are, right? You're not sitting on your couch 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I think...
Every chance I get, but not often.
Yes. Not often enough, right? And, there's just that perception of laziness associated with cannabis.
Of course.
And that couldn't be more from the truth in relation to my life. And certainly the people I work with. So it's just fascinating. But so sort of that activism, that leads into... BPG, is that the next thing that you guys start working on after 96 happens?
Yeah, well, we did the legalization campaign. We ran an office in Berkeley. We got 30,000 signatures, registered 1,500 voters. We managed to get the second highest yes vote in Berkeley of anyone in the state. Okay. West Hollywood was the only one that got more. San Francisco got less, got like 75% or something. Berkeley got 86.5. Who knows why? Right. Then we just said, well, what about everybody else besides medical? So we actually opened an adult dispensary. So while everyone else was going medical dispensary, we decided to go adult. Because in Berkeley, the voters had passed a law back in 1979 legalizing cannabis locally. They made a schedule for the police that put cannabis at the very bottom. Wow. But when we looked into it, we found out that they hadn't actually implemented that law. And that cannabis wasn't in practice at the bottom of the list. They were busting people left and right. So we thought, well, if the government doesn't enact a law that the citizens pass, which they're supposed to, the citizens have to enact it. So we thought the best way to do it was go ahead and enact it. So we opened a Dutch-style coffee shop, just one day a week. It was open for 9 months, 1 day a week, every Friday. It was great. It was great. And what you'll find if you ever rewound the history, the way that we set that thing up is how almost every dispensary works now. Because it was like this. We would find that people would come to our place, and they would come in, and they would get cannabis. They were very respectful when they were inside. It was all cool, right? Because they're chill, trying not to cause any problems. Right when they walked out the door, though, their expression of freedom it was just too loud. You know what I mean? It was like, to quiet down a little bit with your freedom. So we had to start a campaign called Be Cool, the Berkeley Cannabis Ordinance Oversight League. Because we can legalize cannabis, but we have to be cool about this, people. So we started this program of registration program. You can come in, but you have to register. We're going to go through the rules. We're going to look you in the eye. You're going to tell us you understand what we said. You'll sign there too. Don't mess with the neighbors. Don't turn your music up too loud. Don't block the driveways. Nuisance crimes were the real worry for us at that time.
Anything to do to get you in trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you really created the blueprint for the way that the dispensary
It was fun. We had music. We had, coffee bar, everything you would want, anything you would want. So yeah, we got busted by the police eventually because this one cop just couldn't stand it. He was a sergeant on the narcotics squad. They came down a few times. They knew. They totally knew. And in fact, the first time they ever came down was like the weirdest discussion I think. I've had a lot of weird talks with cops, but it was one of the weirder ones because they sent the sergeant down. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Well, we're just enforcing the law, officer, and we're registering voters, we're signing petitions, democracy." And he was just like, "Well, that's nice, but we've got snitches and they've been coming to us. They're trying to set you up." And then he said, "But we're not going to do that." And it's the Berkeley police. He said, "But we wanted you to know that those same snitches work for the DEA, and I bet the DEA is not going to be as nice as us." And we were just like, "Thank you, sir."
What a very real conversation.
Yeah, right. So,
do you remember that guy? Do you talk to him still?
No.
Fascinating.
No,
Wow.
I don't talk to him. He was cool though. But then the next time they came down, they sent the head of their narcotics thing. He was just like, "Can't you guys move to a more subtle location?" Because we were on a main road, and we would open. We'd have a line down the block. So that's why people had to be really cool. You know what I mean? With like 100 people in line. But eventually, like the bad cop came and busted us. But he lied on the search warrant on all 4 counts. He busted us on 4. He went to a judge. He put forward a search warrant. He lied on all 4 counts, literally lies.
Wow.
So we were able to get every single one of them struck in court, and we won the case. I was the only one that had a felony charge against me. Yeah, but we won. We sued the cops.
What felony did they give you?
Felony possession with intent to distribute.
Oh, I see.
Even though they found me with less than an ounce of cannabis, which is just personal possession, but they were just so mad at me.
They just wanted to fuck you over, basically.
Exactly. So they, when we won the case, we sued them because it's not cool that cops lie on search warrants no matter what, right?
Cool.
That's not good.
Yeah.
And
cops probably shouldn't be lying anywhere and ever,
right. So we ended up winning the lawsuit. So there was 7 of us that got busted total. Everyone else got misdemeanor. So we won the lawsuit. So I ended up with my settlement money. I bought a VW van and a ticket to Amsterdam. That was my conclusion to the whole thing. So yeah, that was good. Okay, and then there we had a number of medical marijuana patients who were members of our thing because we had something that was much more potent, a community organization, activism, food, music, society, come, gather, get to know each other. And then this patient approached me after it, this guy, Jim McClelland, who died of AIDS about a year after we founded Berkeley Patients Group together. But And in hindsight, he came to me and asked me if I wanted to found a dispensary with him. And so, yeah, of course, he had some experience with this early dispensary called the Cannabis Buyers Cooperative of Oakland. So it was kind of like the second wave of dispensaries. There was one, Dennis Perone, crushed out by the feds. Then there was 7. It was one of those, crushed out by the feds. So he had been with that organization. So he asked if we wanted, if me and my other partner there, Don Duncan, at the adult use thing, wanted to do a dispensary with him, and we did, and it was great. That's Berkeley Patients Group, right? But like I was saying, he did pass away. He had AIDS, and back then the medicines were no good. Oh my God, it was awful. It was actually really tragic. And anyway, he didn't tell us he was dying. It was so emotional.
Oh, wow.
We didn't know until he was in hospice care. But because what he wanted to do, if you're in the last year of your life or year and a half of your life, you're kind of not publicizing. You want to still live your life. Yeah. So he set up Berkeley Patients Group when we worked together to make it the best thing you could ever have for the last year of your life.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with your time? Is it going to be like, I don't know, you're not going to be just adding numbers in a basement somewhere, you want to be somewhere with a community, music, you want to have food, coffee, positivity, good weed, people gathering, smoking on site, everything. Yeah. We really made a dream facility. And it's in hindsight, I realize now, it was in part with Jim's inspiration. What does he want to do with the last year of his life? And it was epic. It was epic.
Wow.
And
then so after he dies, you must feel this incredible motivation to continue on in his honor, right?
Of course, it becomes like a legacy project where you really dig in. Nobody can take it away ever, at that point. Except, of course, as you know, I eventually left the brand.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how long were you with VPG? And you were running it every day, right? That was
11 years.
Yeah, 11 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a couple of the things about dispensaries, really, that you created, sounds like. But when I hear from early patients, people that just got the recommendation, and they go to a dispensary, and sometimes there's long lines. They get to the front of the line, and there's a lot of options, right? There's a lot of strains. There's different infused items, and there's sort of like this rushed feeling, right? Like you get there, and it's like, oh, I need to make a decision. I don't know what to get, and then you end up getting something that's maybe not right for you, and I mean, how do you combat that? I mean, what do you tell the people that work in?
Right. Well, at the collective I work with now, it's called Magnolia Wellness of Oakland. We're really trying to combat that issue, and we do slow service, like the slow food movement, or a Genius Bar at the Apple Store, where you're going to connect up with a peer counselor who's going to spend as much time with you as you need in a one-on-one conversation, a heart-to-heart conversation to help you find your medicine. And we're not going to rush you, and we're going to have a good conversation. And when you leave, it's because of the conversation in part that you'll actually feel better when you leave Magnolia. So
what are those line of questioning? I mean, how do you have that little interview with them?
Well, I teach at Oaksterdam University, and I teach patient relations there. So I'm always teaching people how to interact with the patients at the counter. And people don't want you just to go like, are you sick and what disease do you have? That's like the opposite, right? So you start the conversation much more, how can I help you today? Are you here looking for something specific? And you kind of let them lead the conversation to start. Now, if you get somebody who doesn't know anything, then you just, each peer counselor.
That's probably pretty rare, right? They don't know anything.
Yeah, although when you get I recently helped a friend of mine who's 65, never tried medical marijuana at all, and had a couple of different complicated conditions, so needed different kinds of cannabis to treat the different conditions. So multiple conditions, cancer, arthritis. It's not the same medication. So going through the process, this is what's hard. Going through the process, it's not so straightforward because the fact is there's different kinds of cannabis that have different effects. There's different methods of taking that cannabis, and each different method has a different effect. And then there's different strengths for each of those. So if you kind of look at the matrix, well, I don't know, you're smarter than me. What is it, 1 million combinations of cannabis or something?
Yeah, it's really difficult.
It's very difficult. So
and you and I take for granted because we have all this anecdotal knowledge, right?
That's right. And somebody like me, I liked experimenting. I haven't tried that. I'm going to try it. You know what I mean? But somebody who's 65 with cancer,
you're confident in your ability to handle basically whatever.
That's right. So, and I'm curious. I'm an explorer. And somebody else who's used to the more Western medical paradigm, or even if you go to a Chinese herbalist, they're going to make you a concoction and hand it to you. They're not going to go, tell me about this, tell me about that. What time of day are you going to use it? It becomes very complicated. So usually you're trying to find what symptoms a patient has, and then you're trying to guide them towards symptomatic relief, starting at very, 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 very low doses. So for new users. But I gave a speech over at the Rossmore Senior Center over in Walnut Creek, and they have a cannabis group there, medical cannabis group. They meet every month. And so it was like 65 seniors, some who were experienced, some who had never had any experience, some who had somewhat experience but didn't know how to use their cannabis. Impossible to face a room of 65 seniors and give them answers on how to use their cannabis because every one of them is different. And oh man, it just really made me realize how important still peer counselors are, slow service instead of this rushed service, and also how important it is to head towards patent medicines that are standardized. I think that's really important too. So eventually I'll be able to point to somebody to a medicine that has this much THC in combination with this much CBD in combination with these terpenes, and therefore I know it'll have this effect. And in this dose it'll have this effect. But right now it's still very fluid in my ability to be able to do that.
Got it.
So even with my friend, I had to start him with, people don't want to start with the smokable because it's got such a bad reputation and stigma. It's actually best because you just take a tiny little puff and you kind of get the feel and see if it works, right? And it goes away fast. Whereas sometimes you take a tiny little bite of an edible, 6 hours later you're still feeling a very potent effect and you're unhappy.
I also find I'm not the biggest fan of edibles. I'm a little bit of a traditionalist. I like flowers typically, but with the edibles I get like a kind of a body lull. right, that I don't get from smoking flowers. It's much more mental.
Right.
I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but yeah. And so the edibles, it takes a little longer, and I totally agree with you. People don't want to smoke, but when they do, I think they realize that it's kind of like not a big deal. You know
Right.
what I mean?
That's right.
They're surprised how little it actually affected them. Like,
That's right.
Which I think is pretty cool. So I used to spend a lot of time in dispensaries. When I moved to the Bay Area about 5 years ago now, I'm from Southern California originally, and there were lounges. I lived in Berkeley. It was great experience, right? And then I moved to San Francisco, and it's a much different kind of vibe here than it is in the East Bay, right? And we have delivery, which in a lot of places there is no delivery, but I don't spend time in dispensaries anymore. I mean, do we need dispensaries anymore? Can't we just all get it delivered?
Wow, I've had such mixed luck with with delivery.
Okay.
Because this is what I did. As soon as delivery came online, I was like, delivery, great. I'm a solo parent. I don't have time to go stand in the lines. It takes an hour by the time I drive and I stand in line and this, that, or the other thing. But what happened when I got delivery was I was getting very inconsistent product at the door and actually very disappointing. And so I think I tried delivery 5 times and I found I just struck out almost every time. I found one company that has consistent cannabis and literally only one that I trust to bring product to the door that I don't like.
Wow.
Because this is what a lot of these delivery companies do. They staple the bags shut. The person comes on the door, they're like, here, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And you're just stuck with what's in the bag.
Yeah.
And
you're talking about like delivery from one particular dispensary, right?
Yes.
Not like
well, I tried this, that, and the other delivery
You tried
companies.
all of them?
Yeah, not all of them, but
A
yes,
lot
I
of them.
experimented. Yes.
a lot
Yeah.
of them. Interesting. So I mean, I pretty much order exclusively from Meadow. Shout out David Hua, but I don't find that with his experience, right?
Well, see, this is what I was saying. In my own head, I know, and I advise business management consultant. I tell my clients or the people at Oaksterdam who are in my classes that want to go into delivery, there's only one way to do it, and that's to make perfect bags of cannabis. Don't send your delivery clients wet, damp, swaggy cannabis,
Presentation is very important.
or you won't keep your clients.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's just like delivering food, right?
Yeah.
Delivering anything. You got to make sure
that's
it's
right.
hot and-
Hey, it's exactly like that, right? I could order Chinese food from like 100 places in my neighborhood, but there's like 2 I go to. So
Yeah.
this is kind of,
Right.
it's the same thing with cannabis.
Yeah. I live in North Beach, so there's like 35 Italian restaurants, right? And I always go to the same 1 or 2 because
That's right.
we built that trust, right?
Yeah.
It's ultimately about trust, yeah.
I agree. And dispensaries, yes, we do need dispensaries because there's something about that retail slow service that's really important for people when they're making their decision. And it's also how people get introduced to new products. And besides that, the dispensaries are a funnel for information. Like we need people to come in so we can tell them about the rally, the protest, the law that we need help,
activism
make the
piece,
call, get in the customer relationship management stuff so we can mail you out important topics that you need to know to protect yourself and to help other people. And then what happens at the dispensaries that I belong to, we follow the wellness model. So you get something else besides just cannabis, free services. There might be massage therapy, something like this. There might be a comfortable atmosphere, like you're saying. We used to go to places where we'd hang out and feel very dignified drinking a coffee and smoking our cannabis. That type of stuff I really love. I think in the future we're going to see more smoking lounges come on board as the stigma and the fear.
So.
Me too.
I hope so, yeah.
Holy cow.
I'm often disappointed. Like, it's Saturday morning. Last night I went out, right? And I like to drink alcohol as well, not nearly as much as I like cannabis. But there's just this expectation, particularly among young people, of like, well, let's go out and get really drunk. And I'm like, I mean, why is that the better solution? Who decided that that was the right drug to pick, right? Because it's a drug. We're all talking about drugs, right? And coffee's a drug, right? So, I really do hope that stigma sort of continues to evolve. What do you think needs to happen? I mean, are we going to have to be recreational in California before people are more comfortable with it?
That's a good question. What is going to happen? Well, for example, I threw this party recently at a nightclub in San Francisco, and they let us set up a cannabis bar. We had the alcohol bar, we had the cannabis bar. What a great idea. I mean, I'd be going out to nightclubs more often if they had an alcohol bar and a cannabis bar.
Of course.
Maybe that's the future, that we're going to be able to go out and choose which bar we go to.
Yeah.
Perfect. Why not have both and have options?
Well, you talked about Amsterdam a little bit. I was in Amsterdam in August, and this is my 4th or 5th time there, but they have a clear division between the coffee shops and cannabis and the nightclubs and bars.
That's right. Some years ago, I don't think that the coffee shops can serve alcohol anymore. But
No,
they used to be
yeah.
able to.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, you used to be able
Oh,
to do both, but
interesting.
that was part of as the laws cracked down further and further in the Netherlands, they bifurcated that maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they clearly made that distinction. Before then, you could go and get alcohol at
What do you think of that? Do you agree?
prohibition's prohibition. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
Mm.
So.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I like options, right? I think as humans, we are entitled to options. We should use our own brain to make educated decisions. But I do have to say that I hear a lot of people complain about the effect cannabis has on them when they're drunk, right? So, like,
Oh yeah. Well, I stopped drinking when I started smoking cannabis. Yeah, because the effect
completely.
was just yes, completely.
Yeah.
Actually, I became like a teetotaler or whatever
No
it's called
wine,
forever.
no
No,
anything.
but now I like to use both. But because I
Yeah.
didn't like the swirly effect it had in my head when I
Yeah.
was combining them.
Yeah.
But even in the Netherlands, for example, when they had alcohol, when alcohol was allowed at the coffee shops, only some did that. There was only
Sure.
certain ones that had it, and even people that had chains would only put alcohol in some of their places because the consumers like to choose their environment. And you know what? This is why, because all my friends don't smoke weed and we still want to go out together. So if I'm going to a place that has weed and my friend smokes alcohol, or uses only alcohol, what am I supposed to do? Say, see you later. We can meet up, let's be able to can't we all be together,
Men's and women's locker
Right.
room. I'll
Thank
meet you
you.
at the pool. Like,
Makes no sense. So I think that that's what happens. People kind of trade, but they can go. People like them together too.
yeah.
Don't get behind the wheel of a car. That's the thing that cannabis users know, and that you find when you look at the data about cannabis consumption and driving under the influence. Cannabis users, when they're too inebriated, we don't get behind the wheel. We know it's going to wear off in a couple hours, and we're going to find something fun and creative to do for that time. So we don't see on the highway this big problem with driving under the influence.
Sure.
And you'll see in Colorado, when you look now, you'll see that driving under the influence of alcohol has gone way down now that they legalized cannabis. So people are making better decisions.
How do you feel about how recreational has gone in Washington and Colorado and now Oregon, right? How do you feel that have they done a good job with it?
Well, that Washington law was a mess with the 3 levels of taxation, 25% at every level. Well, I did the math one day. I tried to do the math and just figure out, the cost of the cannabis is this much, then we add 25%, then they add 25%, then retail adds 25%, then sales taxes added on, then the IRS business taxes are added on. It's ridiculous. You basically have to pay some amount of money to grow a pound of cannabis. It's in the negatives. You can't really make it go. I don't know how they're going to make it go of it up in Washington other than changing the law eventually to be more manageable. In Colorado, I've been out to Colorado a few times. It's going to take some time for the cultivators to make the switch from small scale grow facilities to large scale cannabis, because it doesn't work like some people think, like, oh, I used to grow in my closet, now I just do the math and multiply that times 100 and I'm going to have a big multi-acre facility. It actually doesn't work like that. The industrial cultivation is much different. So what happened in Colorado, what's happening now, is that people are just zeroing in on the cultivation methodologies, and frankly, up till now, the cannabis in the recreational market has been a little underwhelming. We come from the land of cannabis, so I'm hard to satisfy. And when I went out to Colorado and they tried to charge me these enormous retail prices for cannabis that was substandard to California, I would just threw my hands up. I didn't even go to the places. When I was in Colorado last time, I stayed on the private market with my friends who know where to get the cannabis that's like high quality, organic cannabis.
So I think one of the concerns in the recreational movement is that medical and that lower tax rate will disappear at some point. Do you foresee that? I mean, if as a lawmaker, you would say, well, hey, I want to capture as much tax revenue as possible. Why do I want to have these different tax tiers,
Well, like they do it for ibuprofen. I can get it at the pharmacy and I don't pay any tax, and I can get it on the shelf and I pay a sales tax. So there are definitely other schemes in medicine or in the world where there's 2 different levels of taxation. So I think we'll have to fight hard to retain that. Yeah, and I think that we will. So we're lucky in California because we've had 20 years of medical. It's kind of hard to go back on it and pretend it's all recreational. It's not. It's medical. So I hope that eventually, like in the Netherlands, we get some cannabis in the pharmacies too. It'd be nice for people who need it to be able to go to the pharmacy, get a whole plant medicine, highly tested, probably irradiated like they do in the Netherlands to kill the molds and bacterias. But you can get it on your insurance card.
Yeah.
And insurance will cover it, and there's no taxes.
A high CBD strain, maybe
or anything. In the Netherlands, they have a CBD strain, they have a high THC, and they have a mild THC. And so you can go to the pharmacy and you can get three different selections. It's good cannabis. It's tight California-style cannabis.
Yeah.
Let's do it everywhere, right? Let's put it on over the counter. Let's put it in the pharmacies. Let's go grow it in your backyard. Let's be able to share it between each other. The more we can preserve freedom, I think the better.
So flash forward, I don't know how many years, 10 years or so. Is this going to be like in Whole Foods? Is it, are you going to be able to buy cannabis at Costco?
I always want to put a kiosk in Whole Foods. That's it. I'll do that.
I think it's the same demographic, right?
Right.
So it would work.
I think we're going to start to see those CBD don't get you high products like sitting on the shelves next to the hemp seed products.
Yeah.
Those same companies, in fact, that are working on hemp seed products. Stevia, that company that does all those extracts of sugars and stuff like that. Yeah. They're doing cannabis products. They have a CBD department right now.
Very cool.
I am pretty sure we're going to see those CBD products sooner than later on the over-the-counter market.
Yeah. We got to talk to them. That's dope.
Yeah, right? I haven't learned much about what they're doing, but I've definitely Googled it, and they're in it. So they've got the retail knowledge to get it on. Hey, if I could ever partner with somebody, I want to partner with that 5-hour energy drink guy and put cannabis CBD.
Do you like 5-hour energy?
No, but I like the way that he's got them placed right at the cash register of every store all across America. You know what I mean? Yeah. How can I hook up with that guy and get the CBD product in that prime position?
Cold emails.
Right. This is what I thought. Work. You got to buy your 5-hour energy drink because it's going to get you all cranky, and then pick up your CBD, non-irritant right next to it, and then just leave them with, then you go.
Hey, I'm down.
Fine.
I'm very open to trying that.
We're going to make a business.
Fingers crossed, we'll be recreational legally in California in 2016.
Right. I heard somebody say this. It's going to take 20 years to implement the law. Here we are 20 years past Proposition 215, and it's still, frankly, a big mess. We don't even have the state regulations haven't even passed to allow legalized cultivation and production in the state of California, and it's been 20 years. So after we pass adult marijuana, I predict it's going to go just like it did for medical. The cops are going to go crazy. We're going to be getting beat up and taken off the streets and taken to jail. We're going to have to fight the cops. We're going to have to be very smart and very intelligent. And we're going to win that battle by lawsuits, by enforcing the law, by running a democracy. Citizens have to enforce the laws. We can't be like, officer, please enforce the marijuana law. It actually doesn't work like that. And so I think we're going to have a 20-year battle on our hands to implement California.
And in those first few days, right? Like when they first get legal and there's kind of this big party, right?
Yes.
And somehow the economics don't seem to be as legit as they come a little later, right? And are we going to have a similar problem like Washington did, with the messed up tax rates? How do we do
this? This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. Oh, wow. It's really weird what happens. Okay, we're on one side of the voting spectrum. We really support it, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the people who don't support it. There's not too many of those, thankfully.
Yeah.
And then there's the middle and the slightly above middle, because that's what we need. And they really kind of support it. So as we're passing laws, we have to pass the laws to get the votes. And we're a democracy, so we're trying to pass laws to satisfy the majority of the people. It's not just us at the far end. We're kind of trying to write something that's going to fit the mindset of the people that are the 50 plus 1. They're not the same as us. And so what's going to happen is that because of that, we're going to pass laws that are going to be too conservative and that don't work in practice. And it's going to take a number of years through legislative actions to clean up the mess created by creating laws written for the 50 plus 1.
For example, you have a...
Well, let's see, what was something in medical marijuana? Well, with medical marijuana, how we passed the law, but we didn't make any manufacturing laws for 20 years, and we kept busting up until just today people who are manufacturing the products that are legal to sell.
Yeah,
so crazy.
You can sell it, but you can't grow it.
That's right. You can't grow it. You can't manufacture it. You can't make baked goods. We still don't have our edibles produced under the auspices of our county health departments. They're made in people's... I don't even want to tell you how bad it was when I went to visit my suppliers recently, because I thought oh, okay, time to go see how people's kitchens are for these products that I'm working on, and using regularly or providing to people, and I really wasn't happy. And I realized because there's no health department verifying that the kitchens are safe, and people aren't using these sort of safe handling processes that normal bakeries might use because they can't get into a normal bakery and because nobody's regulating them. And
they can't get into like a shared kitchen.
They can't get into a shared kitchen. Yes. So I definitely thought, wow, there's really definitely a place for a business elevator or escalator with a commercial kitchen providing services to all these sort of edible and manufacturing companies. And other services to them, maybe like bookkeeping, marketing.
Accelerator.
Thank you. I always go, what's the word? Escalator, accelerator, elevator. I have a company called, but accelerators. I have a company called Eureka, and called Elevate, and that's our thought. Like we need to take the companies as they are right now and elevate them.
Yeah.
And we need to provide these sort of services, like I know, like you're used to doing in your real world.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, fortunately, we're starting to see some of the great minds in this area from technology and other industries that are starting to come into cannabis with all of this background in, whether it be events or investment or law, right? And that's really cool to see, right? It's kind of gone out of this like cannabis community that you spoke of before and becoming a little more mainstream, which is cool to see. That comes with some concerns, though, right? I mean, is the quality of cannabis going to get worse? We have Marlboro Greens. Is that going to be an issue?
Wow.
Like, what do you foresee there?
What is going to happen? Well, Well, we want to avoid that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
This is the thing. This is what I'm thinking. We're not trying to recruit new users. We're not out there going like, hey, you haven't tried cannabis? Come try cannabis. Like you're about to turn 18 or 21. We can get you into the cannabis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like that. We're trying to help the people that are currently using cannabis to get them out of the underground market, to make the product safer, to put it into some kind of way where it can be taxed and regulated. And so I think that's what we have to focus on in the future. It's not recruitment. And I think by doing that, we're never going to kind of go to the lowest denominator where we need the Budweiser of cannabis because there's so many people, But this is, I think, what's happening in Colorado as we try and ramp up production to these industrial standards, yet still create this very pure cannabis. There's a learning curve for the farmers. And so we are kind of seeing this cannabis come out right now that's just a little too squishy, a little too underdone. The THC is not right. It doesn't get dense and crunchy like I like it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it's going to take the farmers to transition from prohibition-style cannabis cultivation to large-scale safe cannabis.
And there seems to be a really wide range of quality, right? I mean, sometimes I see things that I'm just like, that's terrible, and it's priced higher than what I know to be the best.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally a range. We've got a lot of work to do. Creating this industry is going to be really interesting. It is really interesting to go from kind of advocacy into business. And for me, I feel like my brain is growing, like it's a bigger muscle than it ever was before to have to learn just basic business principles.
Yeah.
This is the other thing I learned. It's been so hard for me. I started Berkeley Patients Group. We started with like one patient and one staff member. I ran it 11 years. We ended up with almost 100 staff members by the time I left. And then we were managing $100 million worth of sales. You know what I mean? That's the learning by fire.
$100 million.
Right. And you have to...
Is that a yearly?
No, that's like the total over the years. Over the course of time, going from one to that...
Still what, like 10 million a year?
Right, all these big dispensaries. So learning everything by fire is very difficult. And most of my peers, many of my peers, are going to fall behind because they're not getting business management experience. That they're in the field and they're kind of isolated and there's still this stigma and they're not learning the programs and they're not doing the bookkeeping and they're not filing taxes. And, so that's sort of what I'm doing right now is I feel if we would really want to make the cultural changes that are on my mind to make a better America, nicer, more sharing, can we be kinder? Can we be more equal?
But it's not just charity, right? I mean, if they don't do it the right way, it's possible they ruin it for everybody else, right? I mean...
Yeah, and then it's also possible that... So it's kind of a nexus, right? We have to teach the cannabis entrepreneur's business, and we have to teach the business entrepreneur's cannabis.
Yep.
So, and it's that nexus that really fascinates me. And part of what I've been trying to do for the last time since I left Berkeley Patients Group 5 years ago is really give my own peers a leg up in business. Everything that I learned by fire, I can translate to my peers and go, look, you really don't have to do it by fire. You can, there's kind of a step-by-step process to business management. But I show people the step-by-step process, and it's downright overwhelming to manage an effective business. So I realize that some of these cannabis entrepreneurs are people that want to be entrepreneurs. If I'm teaching, for example, a class at Oaksterdam, I would want them to know all of you can't succeed alone. Look around the room. Where's your partner? You know what I mean? Like, what is every cannabis user in America going to have their own business? It's probably not going to work, right? Let's find strategic partnerships. And if you have the cannabis knowledge, and there's entrepreneurs that have entrepreneurial knowledge, they know business management, they can run spreadsheets. Let's partner. So I think partnership is a part of the future, and then teaching both sides, cannabis to the entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial business management to the cannabis people.
Got it. Let's talk about Oaksterdam a little bit. How did you get started? Did they ask you to come teach this class, or
how did I get started? Work? I don't even remember how I got started. I think I got in touch with Oaksterdam back in the day, and I proposed to them that I wanted to do a business management course there. Cool. That I wanted to start teaching business management, yeah. And then they said, hey, we've got a spot open for procurement and allocation, so teaching people to buy cannabis and sell cannabis, and for patient education. Okay. And so I stepped into those two roles. And both are fascinating. Buying good cannabis at the dispensary level and selling the cannabis appropriately, and how you go through the quality control management. Yeah. Very fascinating stuff.
Yeah, super interesting. And you get to meet the next generation of cannabis entrepreneurs.
That's right.
That's very cool.
It's very fun.
How big are the classes? Is this like a big auditorium?
It's like 25, 30 people per session.
30 people.
Yeah.
Got it. And how much is tuition to go to Oaksterdam?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Got it.
I should know this.
Look it up. Oaksterdam.
Oaksterdam.
Tell me a little bit about Magnolia, and what's the mission there? How is this going to be different than that?
Well, Magnolia is holding firm to the wellness model. So Magnolia is a nonprofit organization that exists to help people. So that's our first thing. And our very basic value is kindness. Like, let's just be nice. It's amazing to go someplace that the idea is just to be nice. It's so simple, right? And what's funny to me is that people who are my friends come to me, they're like, we went to Magnolia. It was so amazing. People were nice to us. Like, they're so surprised, And so for me, that's surprising. Like, wow, that's the number one thing people are going to tell me again and again, is how surprised they are to be treated nice. So I think that's a good foundation right there, niceness. And of course, then cannabis science, a knowledge base, creating a scalable model, really fine-tuning the systems to scale them. I'm all about helping my peers, so creating scalable models that then we can share and teach other people to do that in their own businesses. I think that's very important. I personally believe the more we can share freely, what comes around goes around. So I have at Magnolia and the other groups that I work with, we have a very strong sharing community, sharing information, sharing opportunity, anything we can.
Very cool. And you guys do delivery?
Not yet, but we will.
You will?
Yes.
You will?
Yep.
So how will your delivery be different?
Well, our delivery will be different because you will always have consistent, highest quality cannabis. This is the thing. This is what I teach my students at Oaksterdam in the procurement class. In a pound of cannabis, there's 3 products. There's high-grade cannabis, those tight, dense buds that are really medical grade. There's these little fluffy buds. They're just fluff. They shouldn't be in the high-grade cannabis bags. They need to be set aside, mix it all together from all the pounds that you get at your collective, and make a mega mix of this cannabis that's less potent. It's usually about 10% THC, as opposed to those dense nugs in the bag, which are like 15 to 18%. So now we've got a 10% THC product in a bag, and we've got a 15, 20% THC. They're all mixed up in the same bag. And then there's the leaf, which is like 3 to 5% THC. Yeah. Now, this is my complaint about delivery companies. When they show up at my door and they have an eighth, they give me an eighth that has all 3 of those products in it, the leafy stuff, the fluffy stuff, and the dense buds. Yeah. I never want to talk to them again. They're doing it wrong. Yeah. Right. So
you've lost all control as a consumer.
Exactly. So I think that really people need to focus on, from the delivery perspective, only putting the premium quality cannabis in those high grade bags of cannabis. And that's what we're going to be committed to for sure, is you are going to get only the best and exactly what you wanted when we arrive.
Yeah, so I think as we transition away from like the drug dealer mentality to dispensaries and legitimate delivery, like that customer experience is really so important. You kind of touched on it a little bit, you know? But there's other parts to it too. I mean, I work for a company, we have about 25, 30 cannabis customers, dispensaries, and all we do is like logistics for those deliveries, you know? And you can like watch it come to you, sort of like an Uber type experience. Cool. You watch the driver. Anyway, when you get ready to do delivery, we'll
count me in. I'm ready. We're almost ready.
I got a little plug.
Okay,
there,
let's talk in 2 weeks.
On fleet, what's up? So my favorite part of the show, we'll get you out on some fun ones here. What do you like to smoke? What's your strain that you like a lot? How do you like to smoke it? At the end of your very busy day, teaching at Oaksterdam and running the world's activism.
What do I like to
How do
smoke?
you unwind?
Well, I mean, I like it all. So there I go. Like, what do I like the best? I used to only like hash and sativa because I really like that uplifting cannabis. It was kind of like I like coffee. I like sativa. I want to feel energized by my cannabis.
Yeah.
But then High Times gave me the opportunity to judge indica flowers for them one year. And so I smoked indica for like a week straight. And I really got the understanding of what the medical effect of indica is as opposed to the effect of sativa.
Yeah.
And I really found that indica is a very good medicine
Yes.
because it goes through your whole body.
Yes.
And you kind of described it a little while ago when you were talking about the edibles, but it gives you that body feel where it's a little bit like, it's a little deflating, I don't know, or relaxing or something like this.
Relaxing is the right
You
word,
really
I think.
feel it inside your body with the sativas. So what I understood about the sativas is that how incredibly potent and powerful and important of a medicine the indicas are for the body and for the relief that they can give people from pain, maybe emotional suffering from stress, irritation, super important.
Yeah.
So what I learned from that is like I like sativas at a certain time and for a certain time and place. I can choose my cannabis based on what I need for
They both
effect.
have their place, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm kind of similar. Earlier in my life, I was all sativa all the time. Viewers of this show know I like green crack a lot.
Nice.
Even though that's the worst
The
strain name,
infamous,
but
yes.
it's really, really good.
Green crack.
And especially on a Saturday morning, right? It's
Okay.
particularly good. But as I've gotten a little older, I've realized the value of indica, right? I have trouble sleeping sometimes.
Right.
For no other reason than I'm excited about my life and I lay
Totally.
in bed and write emails, And so that indica is really important for me, at... I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. That's pretty important.
I'm with you. I like the edibles at night too.
Yeah.
I don't like the edibles in the daytime because I don't like that all over body effect because it's really a medical effect. And if you need to be sort of doing things, driving, doing quick brain work, doing math, anything that requires a lot of concentration.
Excel is tough on any cannabis.
Darn, I was going to try and find the right cannabis to do Excel. I thought that would unlock I took a 2-day session on Excel one time. I was like, you know what? This is what I know about Excel. I got to work with somebody that knows Excel. That thing is...
And they're out there.
Yes.
So you don't need to learn that.
Some people like that. They love it.
They love it,
They
right?
love it.
They spend their whole day in Excel.
Fabulous. I love
That's
those
great.
people.
So how do you like to smoke? Pipe, bongs, what's your go-to?
Well, I like dabbing. I like really potent cannabis. And I also like joints. And I like pipes, and I like eating it,
You like
and I like consuming it. I'm not so much a topical type of person, but I like the effect of cannabis.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I theorize that the reason I told you at the beginning that the very first time I actually felt the effects of cannabis, it changed my life forever. I theorize the reason I felt such an extreme medical change in the way my body is that I was endocannabinoid deficient. That my natural endocannabinoid system within my body was underproducing cannabinoids. So when I finally topped it up.
And how did you find that out? Did you have like blood work done?
No, I just felt that way. You know what I mean? I'm theorizing, that the reason I could go from night to day from using cannabis is because I was endocannabinoid deficient.
And what is that night to day? I mean, how did that deficiency take effect?
I suffered from crippling shyness.
Yeah.
I couldn't even speak. I literally would never have been able to do this.
Yeah.
I couldn't be in a circle of 5 of my best friends and say a word. You know what I mean? This is what happens when you have these kind of social anxiety disorders that can come from a lack of endocannabinoid in your natural system. So can you imagine going from deathly shy and you try cannabis and suddenly you can live your life?
Wow.
Oh, I was like, hell yeah.
Wow.
What do you mean it's illegal and I'm going to get beaten up by the cops and go to jail? Forget that.
No, I need this.
Yeah, this changed my life. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Debbie, I think that's as good an end as any. Thank you so much for being here again. Really a pleasure.
Thank you.
To talk to one of the legends.
Oh, you're so nice.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to come and want to work with you in your real life too. Need your help too. The entrepreneurs and the cannabis people have to get together.
100%. If you need anything, please let us know. We're really trying to help people. We're relatively new to this, not to cannabis, but to the industry side. And so we're just trying to be helpful and talk to as many awesome people as like yourself.
Thank you.
You can find us everywhere. We are on YouTube. We are on Periscope. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Anywhere you go on the internet, you're going to find Investing in Cannabis. Debbie, how could people get a hold of you, or do you want them to get a hold
Oh
of you?
yeah, Debby Goldsberry, Debby with a Y. I'm everywhere too. I'm on
Cool, yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm very interactive. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a
like the
social
social
media
stuff?
person.
Yeah, do you like it?
Yeah, well, I'm a solo parent, so I'm at home alone with my kid a lot. So if I don't have social media, I'm very limited in my ability to get out and interact in the real world. So I love it.
Got it. Yeah.
Big on my online community.
Very cool. We're going to get you out of here. You have a concert to go to,
Heck
right?
yeah.
The Marley Brothers. No?
That's right. The Vibes Fest, Fishbone. Yes.
Cool. Well, enjoy. Thank you again. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, guys.